By October 1948, the Gilgit Scouts, other tribals and regular Pakistan Army troops had seized complete control of the entire Gilgit Wazarat, Hunza, Baltistan and sizable parts of Ladakh and Zanskar. And they came astride the classical Central Asian trade route from Srinagar, over the Zoji via Matayan, Dras, Kargil and Leh.
In April 1948, the hostiles had planned and carried out a well-coordinated operation in which they captured Kargil and Dras, thus overrunning most of Baltistan and some portion of the Ladakh province. In the ensuing months, the road to Leh and the great Central Asian trade route lay open to the enemy. At this time, one of our battalions was rushed to hold the Zoji Pass, which it did successfully against overwhelming odds.
During the intervening period, the route to Leh lay open to the enemy. Having failed to make any headway along the Zojila, he concentrated on acquiring Leh. Success here would have given him complete control over the Central Asian highways and the treasures of the great Buddhist monasteries. He could also have developed a threat to the East Punjab border. At this time, it was decided to reinforce the garrison at Leh by air to enable them to withstand any assault along the Nubra or Indus valleys. It was in May 1948 that, in a daring sortie, Air Commodore Meher Singh, the legendary Baba Meher Singh, landed a DC-3 Dakota at the Indus River bed near Leh, and thus the beleaguered Leh garrison was reinforced with a few hundred rifles. Weaving his DC-3 between the ridges of the high Himalayas. With no de-icing facilities, no pressurization and no route maps, he used visual landmarks like the Nun Kun peaks to finally land in Leh on an improvised airstrip on the dry bed of the river Indus. This historic flight took 7 hours from Srinagar, and on board with Air Commodore Meher Singh was Major General K.S. Thimayya.
It was after these days of anxious waiting that we decided upon a breakthrough at the Zoji Pass. Any infantry assault against well-dug enemy bunkers on crags overlooking the pass would mean heavy casualties, and so came the birth of an idea that at first seemed impossible of fulfillment, that of taking armor up the Zoji Pass and using it as the spearhead of our thrust.
We will not allow Jawdari to capture Leh. We've got to stop this, and we will stop it. We must link up with Leh as soon as possible through Zoji Pass, Dras and Kargil. The successful conduct of this operation will mainly depend on how far we will succeed in getting the tanks up to the top of Zoji Pass, which is very nearly 10,500 feet above sea level. This kind of thing has never been done before. Anyhow, we'll have a good shot at it.
No words can do justice to the unique skill and resourcefulness of our men who built the road up to the pass and took the armor and subsequently the guns up the steep and dangerous rock cliffs.
Here in Baltal, more than half a century ago, gathered Major General Thimayya's assault forces for battle the following day.
On that fateful evening of October the 31st, as we went round the various camps at our base at Baltal, talking to men from unit to unit, there was writ on their faces that grim determination and singleness of purpose that sees every task through, no matter what the obstacles. They knew the heavy responsibility that rested on each and every one of them, and the immense strategic and political consequences of the operation that were to carry out the next morning. The day dawned grey with threatening snow clouds hanging on the pass.
Thimayya, in his typical fashion, understates the situation. Snow had been falling steadily for the past 24 hours. All it would take was a slight intensification for the Zojila to be neck-deep in snow. At a conference of senior commanders held on the 30th of October, there was a debate as to whether the operation should be scrapped. Today, with the benefit of hindsight, we know that had the opportunity not been seized, Ladakh would have been on the wrong side of the ceasefire line come January 1949. The decision ultimately fell on Lieutenant Colonel Rajendra Singh of the 7th Cavalry, whose tanks formed the offensive spearhead of Thimayya's forces. Lieutenant Colonel Singh, on whose nickname Thimayya had named the operation Operation Sparrow, said, "The attack must not be abandoned." HR was pushed back from midnight on the 31st to 10 a.m. on 1st of November.
Squadron commanders and troop leaders, my final orders are that you will move tanks up in one-up position and reach Gumali Basin to engage and destroy the enemy in their bunkers and in other positions.
As infantry battalions were assembled in the rear, the armor set off, heading towards the crest of the pass. History was made in the few hours that followed. The armor pierced the enemy defenses and reached the Gumri plain base of the enemy positions all over the pass and cut his line of communications.
Hello, Victor 1-5. Snowing heavily. Visibility figures 30 yards. Over.
Having achieved complete surprise, the tanks opened up a murderous fire at the enemy positions and forced him to run in all directions, broken and thoroughly demoralized.
Victor 1-5, sit rep. Victor 2 now clear of enemy MMG post. Destroyed enemy bunkers, 4 on Chabudra slopes, 2 on Mukund Ridge. Entering Gumri Valley now. Victor 1-5, over. Victor 1-5, captured Gumri at figures 1430 hours. Enemy on the run, over.
As this news came through, one of my brigade commanders, who was at the pass, decided to push through his infantry.
The first troops from Brigadier Kanhaiya Lal Atal's 77 Para Brigade were the 1-5 Royal Gorkha Rifles, specially selected for the task because they were the only troops familiar with snow and high altitude conditions. This apart, of course, from their tremendous fighting qualities.
The leading infantry reached the Gumri plain and occupied the lower ridges overlooking it, thus preventing the enemy from escaping. At the same time, another infantry unit was pushed through to overtake and destroy the enemy that might have escaped. The following morning, small pockets of the enemy had been surrounded with no hope of escape, and they were either captured or annihilated. Large amounts of arms and equipment fell into our hands. Mountain guns, mortars, ammunition, and clothing of all descriptions. The infantry continued to chase him, capturing Machoi and pushing beyond.
On target! Haji Verona, Charge 3. 010 degrees. Angle of sight, 2 degrees elevation.
The Battle of the Zoji Pass had been decided, and our fighting men had thus crossed the great Himalayan range and were about to fan out into the Ladakh province. In this deep rocky area between the Zoji Pass and Dras, the enemy made his last stand in well-prepared positions dug into overhanging cliffs. After a week of bitter Arctic conditions, the weather cleared up, giving us an opportunity to use our air power. The enemy was given continuous pounding by aircraft and artillery. Finally, on the night of the 14th, 15th November, a two-pronged attack was made on his positions, preceded by severe softening up by tanks and mountain guns. By the morning, the infantry had secured their objective, and the enemy was on the run. Our forces entered Dras the same evening. This operation could not have succeeded without the relentless daring of our fighting men, the resourcefulness and skill of our engineers and airmen, and above all the patient, long, drawn-out hard work put by hundreds of local porters from the Kashmir Valley who put in their all to make it a success. To have lived and worked for a cause, and to have laid down one's life for it, that, and that alone, is the supreme vindication of upright manhood.
After the fall of Dras, Indian troops raced towards the next objective, Kargil. The progress now was on foot, along the ancient Central Asian trade route, not much more than a mule track. There was no motor road. In fact, this was to be built in the following 10 years. Thus, only the infantry carried out this operation to link up with Leh. Kargil was captured on the 23rd-24th of November, and large numbers of its Muslim inhabitants, earlier misguided by Pakistani propaganda but now thoroughly disillusioned by their rapacity, joyously welcomed the Indian troops. Meanwhile, the troops continued their race up towards the Indus Valley and Leh. They passed through places made famous by legendary travelers of yore like Marco Polo and Sven Hedin. The 1st century rock monolith of the Buddha at Mulbek, and finally, on to Lama Yuru, 1,000-year-old seat of the Red Hat Lamas. The famed Buddhist monasteries of Ladakh were liberated from the stranglehold of the marauders who had surrounded them for over a year. That they did not venture into the monasteries themselves was due to tribal superstitions about black magic, said to be practiced by the Lamas. The ancient seat of Buddhist learning, Likir, was liberated on the 26th of November and Phiang on the 28th. Finally, our forces entered Leh, much to the relief of the citizens of the beleaguered city. Once again, peace prevailed in this exotic land, and the chants of the Lamas resounded in the mountains. In those fateful days of the winter of 1948, our troops fanned out beyond Leh to clear the northern areas of the tribals. Crossing the Ladakh range at the Khardungla Pass at 18,000 feet, they liberated the Nubra Valley. Tribals and Pakistani raiders who had been creeping up the Shyok Valley from their base at Skardu were repulsed, and our troops crossed the Great Karakoram at Saser Pass. Then, descending into the Shyok Valley, raced to secure the Karakoram Pass beyond Daulat Beg Oldie. Thus, the old frontier of Jammu and Kashmir state had been reached. Way back in 1812, General Shyam Singh Atariwala of Maharaja Ranjit Singh's army had entered this inhospitable terrain with a brigade and, getting past the Remo Glacier, had secured the Karakoram Pass and the ancient trade route between Punjab and Yarkand. Further to the east lay the wasteland of Aksai Chin, and with its northern approaches at the Kyun Lun range was part of the Jammu and Kashmir state. To the north of Leh, past the Nubra Valley, lay the icy land of the Saltoro range, containing in its lap the great Siachen Glacier. When the ceasefire of the 1st of January 1949 came into effect, the line of control was established on the crest of the Saltoro range, up towards the headwaters of the Siachen Glacier, and then, at Siala, turned east to join the Karakoram range at the Karakoram Pass. In this area, this demarcation of the ceasefire line was to be violated by Pakistan many years later.